All right, welcome back to Lost in the 80s with Rich and Brian. Today we're going to be talking about a pretty interesting topic, at least we thought, for kids in the 80s and just the way life was back then. And a big part of it was going out to eat. The restaurants, whether it's on in your hometown, whether you're on vacation, going out was a big deal. Um, Today it's just like people just go and don't even think about it. But back then it was a much bigger event. So that's what we're going to cover today. Talk about some different restaurants, some local restaurants that we like, some chains that were our favorite, and just some experiences we remember. So, Rich, go ahead and kind of kick us off here.
Yeah, I think the culture of eating out is so different than it was when we were kids. We were talking about this like offline here a few minutes ago, but there was almost never a day. I'm not saying it never happened, but rarely did my dad get home from work. He usually got home around 6 o'clock. My mom got home around 5, where dad was like, "Hey, everybody, let's just load up and go in town to eat." Like mom already had dinner on the table. He came home. We ate. If we were going to go out to eat, it was planned. It was a birthday. It was, some special event, or it was a weekend. And again, like we knew going into the weekend, like we are going to get to go out to eat on. So just the idea of jumping it, like I don't, like Laura and I today, I don't know what we're doing for lunch, but it's likely that when she gets back from her walk and I finish podcasting, that we're going to hop in my truck and we're going to drive down to either Chick-fil-A, Panda Express, Freddy's, whatever, and we're going to get a meal and come home and eat it. That type of culture just didn't exist in the 80s. Or if it did, it didn't exist in the middle class household that I lived in. And I don't think it existed in the household you lived in. So there wasn't cool anticipation about getting to go out to eat. If we were going to go to Ryan's on a Saturday, that was a big deal, man. Those Ryan's rolls, and then you got ice cream afterwards. Um, and so I think a couple of things about culture that I'll touch on, and then I'll let you talk about some eating out culture in the '80s that you liked. I love the way restaurants looked in the '80s. Like they were much more. The decor was much more thought. Like everything's very clinical looking today. It's just there's not a ton of decoration. There may be a few posters on the wall or something, but it's very sterile looking. I'm glad it's clean, but it looks sterile. Where if you walked into Wendy's in the '80s, it had an atrium in the middle with like a forest and a skylight and a potato bar. Like it just seemed like more of a fun thing to go do with your family and not the necessity of just getting food in your body, which I think is what eating out has become, especially the fast food part of it. So I
Yeah,
love the decor and the theme. And then like most restaurants had arcade games or claw machines or like kind of stuff specialized towards kids. And I was a kid in the '80s. So I definitely enjoyed those two things from a culture standpoint.
yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, obviously, outside of like special occasions like birthdays and things like that. For me, I think my favorite two times would, or my favorite occasions would be, when we were on vacation. We would we do our stuff during the day, swim, amusement park, whatever, baseball game, uh, come home and then or come to the hotel and then kind of clean up and get ready to go out to dinner. Like that was a big deal back then, I remember. Um and then also the other time would be like during like a baseball traveling to I remember like when my brother was, let's see, he probably would have been like 12 or 13 going to uh north of Indy. I think it was called Newcastle, but he had a all-star tournament up there. And back then that was a big trip. That was like, 2 hours. So, going out with a big group of people after a tournament day, to a place you've never been, but like you said, you got the games, the claw machine, the Pac-Man, Double Dragon, all those kind of things, pole position. Um, yeah, it was an experience. It wasn't just like "Hey, I'm gonna order a hamburger and fries," but it was a big deal. It wasn't just like running and getting a sandwich at Chick-fil-A today.
Yeah, I think fast casual dining, which I worked at Chick-fil-A in the '90s as a high school kid, and my operator, owner, whatever, he would always call us quick service or fast casual. He would never say fast food. Um, but I think fast casual dining, which is very popular now, was done at home back then. Like if you wanted something quick and inexpensive, your mom went out and got some hamburger helper, a couple pounds of ground beef. You mixed up Kool-Aid, which we always had Kool-Aid at dinner for me and my sister, and then my mom and dad drank tea. But like that whole meal was probably $10 or maybe less. And so what we find now is if I'm going to go buy groceries for everybody in the house to cook a meal, sometimes it's just as inexpensive to go down to Chick-fil-A. I think that's one thing that flipped is fast casual kind of changed. If we want easy and inexpensive, going out sometimes becomes that option. Where in the '80s, it was more of a we also didn't like go out in the same way. Like I didn't if I was going to go out somewhere, like your mom and dad put on nice clothes, right? And they like you put on something nice and you're like, I'm going to Arby's tonight. Where now you see people in, pajama pants and Crocs walking into or into Panda Express ordering food. So I just think the whole culture around leaving your home to eat changed from the '80s till now. And we saw it kind of switching in the '90s. I mean, I got my driver's license in the '90s. I worked away from home. So I would go through rallies or checkers before I went to Chick-fil-A, which was dumb because I got free food at Chick-fil-A. But um, it started to change some then, but I loved when nostalgia hits me about the '80s, going out to eat is one of the main things that hits me
Mhm.
because it was, and you may not remember this. I hope you do, but Bloomington had one of these. Do you remember a restaurant called Po Folks?
No.
So
Say
it
it
may
again.
have just it was like a play on words like poor folks, but it was actually Po Folks. And it was like country fare. It was Cracker Barrel before Cracker Barrel was in Bloomington.
Yeah,
And like if we were gonna go to Po Folks, we knew like 6 weeks in advance, like we're going. And it was just the anticipation was great. That was my favorite thing about the
yeah,
culture.
yeah, so let's kinda move into some local stuff, like just restaurants you remember, around your hometown. I know we've talked about this before. You grew up in Bloomington, and, obviously a lot bigger than I grew up in Sullivan, which is about 4,500, maybe 5,000 residents. Going to Terre Haute is about 20 minutes or so. That was a bigger city, probably around 60, 70,000. So that would be a Friday night thing. But just staying local in the hometown, um, let's see, we had McDonald's, we had Dairy Queen, um, we had Hardee's. I don't think we got Burger King until the 90s. Um, like now we have Subway also. We didn't get that until the 90s. And then a lot of little local places, Pizza King Pizza, or I'm sorry, yeah, there was Pizza King, but Pizza City was where a lot of kids would do birthday parties. They had the little sit down joystick, where you could be side by side with, or face to face with somebody, like a dual screen where you could play
Okay. Yeah.
Miss Pac Man or Frog or something like that. Um, that was a big thing back then, Pizza City. Um, for us, there wasn't any Mexican restaurants. I don't think there was any Chinese restaurants. So we basically grew up with hamburgers. That's pretty much the only hamburgers or pizza. That was basically what was offered.
I think that was probably everybody's fast food, experience in the '80s. We had, of course, Bloomington had more selection, but we didn't until the '90s when I could drive. It just wasn't something that we were like, let's go do a different thing today than we did yesterday. Like that wasn't going to happen. We went to McDonald's on a special occasion because McDonald's had the huge play area in Bloomington, Like, I just remember that, like, suspension bridge. I don't know if yours had one of those. It was, like, made out of these huge logs,
Yeah.
and I keep, like, looking back, I'm like, "If you got your finger pinched and you were just losing it. There was no saving that thing." It seemed, I don't remember anybody getting hurt, but it definitely seemed like it could have been dangerous. But I feel like the quality of fast food then was good enough that you looked at it as a real meal, where today it seems like if you do fast food, you're settling. Like, I don't have time to stop at Chili's or wherever, so I'm just going to do fast food, but I'm only doing it because I don't have time. Where back then, if you were going to McDonald's, we had McDonald's. I loved Wendy's. I don't really enjoy Wendy's now, but at the time, Wendy's chicken sandwich was like my go-to as a kid, weirdly. Um, but then, of course, you had the Happy Meal toys. So McDonald's always ended up pulling me back. It was the closest restaurant leaving Unionville and getting into Bloomington. There was one on Pete Ellis Drive that, like, you passed it before you passed anything else. So why would you drive past McDonald's to go somewhere else? But
Right.
we had Arby's, we had Racks. You know, Racks has disappeared since, but I really liked Racks. Also, Long John Silver's was a big, like, you remember, because they were very themed. Like, I liked the decor and everything inside Long
Yeah.
John Silver's, so we went there quite a bit. But fast food was way sit down restaurants are very similar to me today than they were in the 80s, but fast food restaurants were way better in the 80s. The food was better, the decor was better, and like like the people that were working there seemed like they were glad to be working there. Where people
Mhm.
working there today is just like, just get out of order your food and get out of my face. I'm
Right, right.
before I punch you in your head.
Yeah. So, I'm thinking about, the outside of McDonald's and places like that, when it was a little more, like, exciting, um, Pizza Hut was in the mall, Honey Creek Mall. Pizza Hut was great. They had a really good, they had good decor there, and then obviously, I'm sure you've heard about all the ones coming back. We talked about that offline, didn't we? The old style Pizza Hut's coming back. I think that'll be pretty cool. You remember Book It with Pizza Hut,
Yeah,
where you got the button when you read a certain number of books or something? Um, so that was always fun. Long John Silver's, you mentioned that. That was a go-to for us a lot. We did a lot of, I still remember what I always got. It was called the two-piece fish and more with,
yeah.
2 pieces of fish, the little crunchy things, uh, Hush Puppies, and I would always get Sprites, I remember, as a kid. That was my favorite drink at Long John's. Yeah, Rax was good. Rax had the buffet, didn't it? Didn't it have
It had a
something in the middle
Yeah, it
there?
had I think it had a potato bar, a baked potato
Okay.
bar,
Yeah, that's
which
right.
was a big thing in lot, like, I think Arby's had one and Wendy's had one. Like, I think several places, which I kinda wish people would go back to a baked potato bar.
Yeah, I bet a lot of it now is just, due to sanitary
Yeah,
requirements.
absolutely,
That
absolutely.
probably has a lot to do with it. Um, but yeah, obviously, being in a little town where I am, we just did they couldn't afford to keep businesses like that open, around here. Um, if you had a go-to, like, hey, your parents come to you and say, "Rich, it's your 10th birthday. Where do you want your party to be? What restaurant? What would you have picked in the 80s?"
It would have been McDonald's for sure, just because ours had a big party room, it was built for just for birthday parties. So now, after that, you know, 11, 12, after my 10-year-old birthday, probably it wasn't going to be at McDonald's, but elementary school up to probably fourth grade, my birthday parties were at McDonald's. Now
Yeah.
it transitioned to another very 80s thing, Western Skateland after that. Um, which I think this is just a little sidebar, but there were a lot of places we went that also served, like Western Skateland was somewhere I went every Saturday as a late elementary and junior high, and they had a snack bar in there. So usually I ate my Saturday lunch at Western Skateland, but You and I both were big baseball guys in elementary school. We ate dinner often at the concession stand at the baseball park.
Yeah,
Like Danny Smith had a pretty good concession stand. They had hot food. And so you would play your game, you'd stay and watch your buddy's game, and you would just get a couple hot dogs and a snow cone. Um,
yeah,
which
yeah,
so it's
snow
yeah,
cones
snow
were
cones
great.
are I could do a whole episode on how much I love snow cones. But I
Um,
would say McDonald's was my spot. Did you do birthday parties at a
yeah,
restaurant?
I remember at least 2 McDonald's, but if it was like, "Hey, pick whatever you want," which I had one of these, it was a Showbiz Pizza. That
Okay,
was
yeah, for sure.
but the reason it wouldn't have been a lot of those is because it was a drive,
Was it
20,
in Green
25 minutes.
is the closest one to you, was it in Terre Haute?
Terre Haute. Yeah, it was there.
Oh, Bloomington did not have a Showbiz. We had one in Greenwood,
Okay.
and
Yeah, so
and so
Showbiz was good. I remember I was probably 8, 7 or 8, but if you remember, there was like a bear,
yeah.
literally, like, he dressed up and, like, one of my kids I still remember this kid's name, I'm not gonna say it on air, but I remember his name, and he was absolutely terrified, and he had to go home because that bear scared him, like, he literally thought he was gonna be, like, mauled or something. But, anyway, his first name was Eric, I'll just leave it at that, and, his mom had to come get him because he was just
Nice.
out of control, hysterical, thinking he was gonna get attacked by this, Showbiz Pizza bear. Um, but yeah, Showbiz was great. It's odd that I guess there are still places like that around. Um, it just seems weird that there's not more of those still today. Like, you wonder why those chains failed. Maybe they were only based on special events. Maybe that's why. But it's too bad that there's not many of those anymore.
Yeah, we went to a Chuck E. Cheese. I mean, of course, this has been my kids were younger, so this has been 15 years ago or 12 years ago or something. The last time we went to one, I just remember thinking like there's so much hoping that the games bring people in, that the food, the service, everything else was just terrible. And I remember that they served alcohol, which seemed odd. It's like, okay, kids, you can go play for a while mom and dad are going to get plastered in the booth waiting on you to come back. Like it just was I was like, we're never coming here again. It just, the food was bad. The service was bad. So I think
Yeah,
we have a place here in Tulsa called Incredible Pizza. The food's actually pretty good. The service is great and it's massive. It's but like they have go-karts, laser tag, and then they have all the regular games that you would normally think. So it does really well, but I think it's because you couldn't take one away from the other. You had to have decent food. You had to have something for the parents besides a pitcher of beer for them to bring their kids in. And that's
yeah,
probably why they died. But just to wrap up fast food before we talk about a few sit down places, like you know, from my house at 131st Street, if you go down Memorial, the road I live on, if you go to 101st Street, I would say there are 40 restaurants that are likely considered at least fast food adjacent. If you take it out the like Cava and Qdoba and Chipotle and some of those, maybe they're not fast food, but restaurants like that as well as all of the others. There's actually a McDonald's at 121st Street, and there's a McDonald's at 91st Street, which is crazy. That's 3 miles, but they're just like so. We have so many options for fast food now that you don't have to eat the same place, the same within a week or two of each other. Where
hmm
really growing up for me in Bloomington, it was McDonald's, it was Arby's, Racks, Wendy's, or Burger King. Throw in a Long John Silver's if you want to go in and sit down and eat the fish and more, which I actually ordered 2 days ago. By the way, there is a Long John Silver's right by my house. So
yeah. We
that's
don't
a
have
huge
one
difference.
anymore.
Now ours were all closed in Tulsa, and they reopened one a month ago, and the line has been like a Chick-fil-A line, like around the corner.
Yeah.
Um,
Uh,
so hit on
as
some
far as like
sit down places that you guys liked.
So I'll just name a couple here since we're kind of coming up on time here, but 2 that were always special to me. Um, one was Shoney's. That was like when we went on vacation, the place we went had to have uh, usually three things: a baseball team, a major league team, um, a swimming pool at the hotel, and a Shoney's restaurant. Those were or that place going out there. You know, it'd always be a dinner. It would never be a lunch, but just going out later at night. That was always that was always a big deal. Um, as far as the other sit down place, I'm really struggling. I There was a place called, I want to say Captain D's.
Yeah,
Have you heard
Captain
of
D's
that?
was seafood. Yeah, they had one in the mall parking lot in Bloomington.
Yeah. So because that wasn't around here, at least that I remember. So if for some reason Shoney's was, or maybe it was Shoney's one day and Captain D's the next, but those are the two um, that really stood out to me that I liked. I remember it just Shoney's just seemed, I don't know, for an 8-year old, it seemed fancy, which is
Yeah, yeah,
very
yeah.
funny to say. But to me, it seemed like upper upper class. In comparison to Pizza City or Long John's, something like that. And I thought D's just had a neat atmosphere, and it was just something different. So those are the two that stood out to me.
And it was big. Captain D's was bigger. Like the food was somewhat similar to Long John Silver's, but it was in a much bigger building. So
Hmm.
it would house a bigger crowd. We and again, this goes back to a culture thing. Like I'm sure there were people in Bloomington that went to nice restaurants. I mean, they existed. I know that. But for a middle class family, that just wasn't what we did. Except like my dad's birthday, we might, and here's some names you might remember. I think all of these are closed down, but there were three places in Bloomington that we went not regularly, but once a year maybe. There was Ponderosa. I think there was a place called Bonanza, and then there
Mm.
was Western Sizzlin'.
Oh yeah, I
And those
remember Western
all,
Sizzler. I don't
they
remember
well, there
Bonanza.
was, yeah, there was Sizzler, and then there was Western Sizzlin'. I don't know if those two were related or not, but I know like if you wanted to get a reasonably priced steak, that was that was where like probably adult like my dad for his birthday, he didn't want to go to McDonald's. So we would go to Ponderosa or Western Sizzlin because you could get a pretty reasonably priced steak and eat kind of a manly thing.
Hmm.
But those all kind of got run out of business. I think by that next level when places like Outback and Longhorn and Texas Roadhouse came in,
Yeah.
you could get a steak, a really good steak, at least by my estimation at the time, for just not that much more than what you were paying at Ponderosa. And so most of those kind of older steakhouses went out. But the place I probably loved to go most as a sit down restaurant as a kid, and this is going to be weird, but I loved Red Lobster. Like I still love Red Lobster. And again, it was a place we probably only went on my mom's birthday, but those cheesy biscuits, man, those would have got my little chubby heart fluttering. I was a big fan of that, of that establishment back in the day. But it is weird that most fast food restaurants have survived, other than a handful. But a lot of the major national chains for that mid-level dining have all gone out of business.
Yeah. Right. Um, well, let's move to our closing segment here. We've got a Mount Rushmore of '80s restaurants. Now that's just for you personally and me personally. So whether it's local or whatever, but go ahead and share your four, and then I'll share mine.
Yeah, so for fast food chain, I just because of the playground and everything else, I'm going to have to choose McDonald's, although Wendy's is a very close second. For pizza restaurant, it was Pizza Hut. We had two Pizza Huts in Bloomington. One was pretty close to my house. So if we were going to have pizza, we got it there. Although I really liked Noble Roman's pizza better, which I think might be closed down now, unfortunately. There was a local place called Mother Bears that I'm going to actually slide in as my favorite local hometown restaurant. There's a Mother Bears was close again to where I went to junior high, but I liked it even before then. So Mother Bear's, and it's a big IU establishment. And then if I'm going to go with favorite sit down chain, it'll be Red Lobster. That was my go to for sure. Those four
Yeah.
are on my Mount Rushmore.
So mine would be so my favorite fast food. I'm actually going to have a two part for my first one because it depends on the time of year. If it was summer, it'd be Dairy Queen because of the
Well,
baseball helmets.
that's a great pick.
Now they may have had those throughout the year as well. I just really remember them, during baseball, or during the summer. But then McDonald's obviously was there. Um, I used to love the McDLT. I thought that was such a cool, uh, just odd way to do something, but it was great. And by the way, if you are listening
I know
and
what
you've
you're getting
never
ready to
watched
say.
Jason Alexander's uh, McDLT commercial, please go to YouTube immediately after this and just type in Jason Alexander commercial. It'll be the greatest 90 seconds uh, maybe you've had of your life. Um,
That's saying a lot.
favorite pizza restaurant was Pizza Hut. Um, favorite sit down restaurant was Shoney's, and local hometown restaurant would be Pizza City for me. So
I think those are great picks. Dairy Queen was something we didn't touch on a lot, but I we didn't have a closest one was Spencer. So that wasn't a thing we got to enjoy very often, but I did enjoy a Dairy Queen every now and
yeah,
then.
and I almost, at least for us, Dairy Queen, even though it was I guess kind of in the same category as McDonald's and Burger King, I don't remember ever just going through the drive through. It seems like we always went in when we went to
Yeah,
Dairy Queen.
yeah, us too, for sure.
Because you could, with the counter there, you could see the helmets, what team you're going to pick, and the soft serve machines and all that were like right there, and it just seemed like it wasn't a drive through experience for me most of the time.
Yeah, to sum
But
up, I think just like most other topics we've discussed in this podcast, the 80s just felt more built around the family when it was dinner time. Where now it's almost a fend for yourself, get what you can so you can get on to your next thing. And I liked the family element of eating out in the 80s.
yeah, yeah, for sure. So, all right, well, that's going to do it for our episode today. Appreciate everyone listening. Like, subscribe, share, do all that stuff. And you've been listening to Lost in the 80s with Rich and Brian, and we're out.
Later.